is a world of compensations. He who would be no slave must consent to have no slave. Abraham Lincoln.
1829. David Walker, a freed slave, publishes The Radical Appeal, a document that referred to slavery as an attempt at murder.
1831. William Lloyd Garrison, a white abolitionist, founded The Liberator, a newspaper that advocated the emancipation of all slaves.
1831. Nat Turner leads the most violent slave uprising prior to the Civil War. It resulted in the passage of laws that prohibited the natural rights of both slaves and free blacks.
1833. William Lloyd Garrison and Arthur Tappan founded the American Anti-Slavery Society. It published a weekly newspaper, and at its peak, it had around 250,000 members.
1838. Frederick Douglass escaped slavery and went on to become a leader of the abolitionist movement. People were impressed by his eloquence and intelligence, despite the limitations placed on blacks at that time.
1840. The Liberty Party is formed. The members worked to spread the idea that the Constitution is an anti-slavery document. Presidential candidates ran under the Liberty Party in both 1840 and 1841.
1844. John Quincy Adams wins his campaign for the repeal of the gag rule in Congress. This gag rule prohibited the discussion regarding anti-slavery laws in Congress.
1846. David Wilmot introduces the Wilmot Proviso, a bill that would have banned slavery in any territory acquired from Mexico during the Mexican-American War. The bill passed the House but failed the Senate.
1847. Frederick Douglass begins the publication of the North Star. Contrary to the Liberator, it focused on the political aspects of the anti-slavery movement rather than the moral and religious.
1848. Mexico cedes territory ranging from present-day California to New Mexico to the United States. This Mexican cession created an uprising in Congress regarding which territories would enter as free states and which would enter as slave states.
1850. The passage of the Compromise of 1850, a package of 5 bills that sought to provide a solution to the conflict over the Mexican cession. Its most important bill was the Fugitive Slave Act, that required all runaway slaves to be returned to their masters.
1852. Harriet Beecher Stowe, a prominent abolitionist, publishes Uncle Tom's Cabin, a novel depicting the poor treatment of slaves at the hands of their masters. It became second to the Bible as the best-selling novel of the century.
1854. Kansas-Nebraska Act, the first time new territories' positions on slavery was determined by popular sovereignty rather than by the terms of the Missouri Compromise.
1854. Bleeding Kansas, a series of violent confrontations caused by the debate over Kansas's status as a free or slave state. It prefaced the upcoming Civil War.
1854. The Republican Party was formed as an anti-slavery party. The party's first victorious presidential candidate was Abraham Lincoln in 1860.
1857. The Dred Scott case is taken to the Supreme Court, and Chief Justice Taney and his court proclaimed that slaves are not protected under the Constitution, can never be citizens, and are the property of their owners.
1858. Lincoln-Douglas debate, a series of 7 debates between Abraham Lincoln and Stephen Douglas for Senate in Illinois. Although Lincoln was defeated, the arguments he made during these debates regarding slavery fueled his presidential campaign in 1860.
1859. John Brown leads a raid at Harper's Ferry, a United States arsenal, to seize weapons and rally up slaves into rebellion. He was stopped by the Marines, led by Robert E. Lee. 1860. Abraham Lincoln is elected president! His opposition to slavery leads to the gradual Southern secession from the Union. The Civil War.
Fought over the issue of slavery. deadliest war in American history. Victory for the North put an end to slavery and the Confederacy. Strengthened the federal government. 1861. 7 southern states seceded from the Union and formed the Confederate States of America. Robert E. Lee became president of this confederacy. This was the start of the Civil War.
1863. Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation officially freed all the slaves in the Confederate States that refused to rejoin the Union. It made abolition and reunion major goals of the war.
1865. The 13th Amendment officially outlawed slavery and all other forms of servitude. It was the first of the 3 Reconstruction Amendments.
1868. The 14th Amendment, the Civil Rights Act, granted citizenship to African Americans and prohibited states from depriving people of their natural rights.
1870. Ratification of the 15th Amendment prohibits states from denying citizens the right to vote based on race.
Harriet Tubman was an escaped slave, made 13 missions to rescue over 70 slaves using the Underground Railroad. The Underground Railroad was a network of anti-slavery safe houses that ensured safety of slaves until they made it to the North.
William Garrison published The Liberator, founded the New England Anti-Slavery Society, co-founded the American Anti-Slavery Society, saw the Constitution as a pro-slavery document, and encouraged the separation of the Union.
Frederick Douglass, prominent abolitionist speaker, wrote an autobiography. At that time, skeptics questioned his literacy